So we're just waiting for our sergeant to come over, and we'd like to go through your house. Are you okay with us searching through your house? All right. We'll have you sign a consent form. We just want to see if you left a note or anything inconspicuous, something like that.
Christopher Watts received a call from a police officer that morning, asking if he knew where his wife, Shanann Cathryn Rzucek, was. Two of his friends were outside his home, stopping by to check on Shanann. She was 15 weeks pregnant and had a doctor's appointment that morning, and they knew she wasn't eating or feeling well last night.
Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. What's going on?
So my friend, we were out of town for a business trip this weekend.
All right.
And I dropped her off at 2 o'clock this morning. She's 15 weeks pregnant. She wasn't feeling well, and she had a doctor's appointment this morning at 9, and I told her to let me know if she needed me to take her. She's got 2 little girls. And she was very distraught over the weekend, wasn't eating normally or drinking, and we kept trying to force it on her because she's pregnant. Her husband and her supposedly are separating, but she didn't know this. She thought they were just having issues. He disclosed that to me today. Because I called him and I was like, have you talked or heard from Shanann since she left for work this morning? Because I can't get a hold of her. I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day are right in the front door.
She only has one vehicle?
No, they only have the one vehicle in his work truck.
Okay.
Concerned, the friends called the police, who found all the doors were locked and that there was no sign of anyone there. Chris said he had no idea where Shannon was and rushed back to his house to find the officer and 2 of his friends standing outside his home. He opened the doors to let the officer and his friends inside to investigate. Their worries were confirmed when they found the house was completely empty.
You checked upstairs? She's not there? I just want to make sure she's not passed out somewhere. Is she diabetic? You mind if I look around? Go ahead. Okay.
Shannon was gone, as well as her and Chris's 2 daughters. Nothing in the house seemed to be missing except for the daughters' blankets, which they never left home without. But what was stranger was what was found inside the house. Shannon had left her phone there, making it impossible to contact her. She also left behind her wallet, her ID, as well as her wedding ring on top of a desk. The officer asked Chris if his and Shannon's marriage was doing fine. Chris admitted that they were getting ready to separate. It was nothing official yet. They were just figuring out how to sell the house and get things situated for themselves and their kids. He admitted, however, that the 2 of them had an emotionally heated conversation last night at around 3 a.m.
She was there for 6 weeks, and we got back Monday or Tuesday, and then she flew out to Arizona Friday morning, and then she got back last night about 2 a.m. The flight got delayed. She left about 11. She got here at 2.
Okay.
And I went to work this morning about 5:15, 5:30.
So what time do you work?
Usually, once I get to work, it's like 6:30 to 3:30, 4 o'clock.
You usually work nights or days?
Days.
What time do you leave the day?
What time to leave there?
No, here.
Usually between 5:30 and 6.
Right. And was Shannon here then?
Yes. Yeah, she's still in bed.
Does she usually watch the kids, or you have daycare watch them? Or?
She usually watches the kids if they're not at school.
Okay. You guys having any kind of issues, marital issues, or?
We're going through separation.
You are? Did you guys file it yet or anything, or just talking about it?
No, we're gonna sell the house and do a separation.
How's that going?
It's going
Civil for the most part, or? She tell you anything about leaving, moving out?
Not moving out. I mean, the last time I talked to her was this morning. She said she was gonna take the kids to a friend's house, and then she asked where she was gonna be. And then I've texted her today and never heard anything. But cars here. Cars are here. Unless somebody came and picked her up. But the people that I know, nobody's heard from her, nobody's seen her.
He said he regretted some things, he said, especially since that was the last time he spoke to her. The story of Shannon going missing with their 2 daughters was picked up by the news and spread like wildfire.
Watts and her 2 daughters, 3-year-old Celeste and 4-year-old Bella, vanished on Monday. Their startling disappearance triggering a statewide alert as police and the FBI focus on her home outside Denver, where she was last seen.
Christopher Watts was interviewed as the father and husband who had lost everything, and he kept saying he wished Shannon would come home with their kids. It was easy to empathize with Chris, and people from all over the state started looking for signs or clues of Shannon's whereabouts.
That she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. But, I mean, could she have just taken off? I don't know, but if somebody has her and they're not safe, like, I want them back now.
But for all the coverage and people searching, there were no signs of Shannon anywhere. She didn't have family that lived in the state, and all her friends said they hadn't seen her. It was as if she had completely vanished. People began to wonder if Shannon had run off with their 2 daughters and unborn son. She could have been hiding somewhere, trying to keep the children away from their father. On the surface, this was the most obvious answer. Shannon and her husband had gotten into a heated argument the night before and were planning on divorcing. If she felt like she might be disadvantaged in a custody hearing, that could have been a motivation for running away. However, this didn't seem to be what happened, or at least not the full picture. Neighbors who knew Chris well said that he had been acting strange the past few days, but even more so after Shannon's disappearance.
You just want to go talk to him? I'm going to get his info real quick. No.
He's never fidgety. He's never rocking back and forth. And if you look, he never loads his stuff in and out of the garage ever.
Right.
And it doesn't look like he came from right here. It looks like he came from down the street. And then the other thing that doesn't make sense is why would he pull past this part? You can see him pull past.
Are you able to record this?
Uh-huh. I'd have to call Comcast so I can get him to do whatever. But watch, you'll see him get out. And he walks back and forth a couple times. To be completely honest with you, my wife and I were kind of wondering when she was on vacation if something happened, because I've heard them full out screaming at each other at the top of their lungs, and he gets crazy.
Does he? And that's pretty recently?
Yeah. I'm guessing that's why she went and visited people, is because she wanted to get away from the situation. It just seems kind of odd to me. Why would he pull the truck up and go to the garage?
Right.
Yeah, I've never seen him pull back. I've never seen him. If he loads his stuff, he normally just walks back and forth, because I get him on camera.
What does he usually load up?
All he usually has is a lunchbox and a book bag, looks like a computer, and usually a water jug. That's it. But the fact that he was in here and explaining to it over and over and over,
Well, odd.
he doesn't look worried. He looks like he's trying to cover his tracks. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if he's loading his stuff, why isn't he walking back and forth? But I can't see what he's doing in the back of the truck because he pulled into the garage. Yeah. And he knows my camera's there.
Oh.
But I thought it was kind of odd that he never parked in front of here or right here. He said someone broke into his truck and he parked over here. I have no idea. Hey, he's acting so suspicious. He's normally, you can ask them, he's normally quiet, real subdued. He's over here telling you 3 times what he took out, what he did. He's very, he never talks. So the fact that he's over here blabbing his mouth makes me kind of suspicious.
The camera captured Chris coming home in his truck and leaving 50 minutes later on the night of the incident, which lined up with his story. But what didn't make sense was how Chris went in and out of the vehicle multiple times in those 50 minutes. He wasn't inside arguing with Shannon like he said he was. He was loading something onto his truck before driving away. Christopher Watts was immediately taken in as a suspect for questioning.
What happened? So I crawled back in bed. So sorry, let's start from, she gets home late at night. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll start from that point. Okay, so she got home about 2 a.m. And were you already home? Oh yeah, I was passed out. Okay. Yeah, so like I felt her get into bed, that was about it. But about 4 a.m. that's when my alarm went off to go to work. Okay. So that's when I got ready and everything.
So from, she gets in at 2, alarm goes off at 4, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you were sleeping that whole time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the conversation hadn't started?
No.
Okay.
So about when my alarm goes off, that's when, after I get ready for work, I crawl back in bed and have that conversation.
So you wake up at 4.
Mm-hmm.
At 4, then what until you start the conversation?
Get dressed, get my clothes on, brush my teeth, deodorant, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Shower?
No.
Okay.
Shower, night before.
Okay, what do you do for a living?
I work in the oil and gas.
Okay. So then it doesn't matter if you go to work without a shower? Okay.
Doesn't really matter.
All right.
It's going to be bad anyways.
Yeah. So then you wake up, you get ready. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
You're fine.
So then what time are we talking about when you're ready to talk with her?
About 4:15 or so.
Okay. And so she was asleep from the time she got in from 2 to 4,
Mm-hmm.
or 4:15. You wake up at 4:15, you're ready. Okay, and at 4:15, you start talking.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you talk at 4:15 in the morning?
I felt like I needed to talk to her face to face because, like, I wanted to say something. Like when she was in Arizona, like, I didn't want to do it through a text. I didn't want to do it through a call. I was like, I got back in bed. I was like, I needed to talk to her about this because she had told me like when she was going to fly back that she wanted to get up with me so she could take a shower because she wanted to get there without me.
What do you mean when she got back?
When she flew back in.
From Phoenix?
Yeah.
Okay. So she told you, let's have a talk?
No, she wanted to get up with me so she could take a shower at the airport off her because she was her flight was delayed.
Oh, okay.
Her flight was supposed to get in at 11, but it didn't leave till 11.
Okay. And so did she call you or did she text you?
I think there was a call.
Okay.
On that one.
All right. And so at 4:15, what happens?
That's when I crawled back in bed and I woke her up.
Okay.
And then I proceeded to talk to her about how I was feeling, about how I felt like what's been going on with us for the last, what she's seen like the last 6 weeks, because she was in North Carolina and I was down there just the last week. But from just being apart and just like figuring out who people are, it's like the best way for people to really find out who they are is to spend time apart.
I agree.
And just kind of just like, you need to see yourself. And then on the last week, that's when I went back to North Carolina, and I was there for the last week there.
Okay.
And when we were together, we could feel like it wasn't there, that spark.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's kind of cliche, but that spark wasn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And on that night, I woke up early that morning, I told her, like, the disconnection, it's there, like, it's not going away. Like, the connection we had in the beginning, it's not there anymore. It's like, I don't feel like the love we have is there anymore.
Okay.
And it's just like, I don't feel like, I mean, if we want to stay together for the kids, I'm not sure if that's going to work. Like, bringing
That's what you told her?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, having another baby and bringing us into this relationship, do you think this is going to work with us being together? Or separation, I think, is going to be the best possible route for us. And that's when, like, all the crying and everything proceeded. And it was very hard just to talk about that. But I needed to do it face to face.
Okay.
And I needed to see her face, like, while I did it. I couldn't text, phone, whatever. I needed to be face to face and be able to see her and know that she was going to be at least reciprocating back to me.
Oh, what did she say?
She said that she wanted to kind of work on it, but if that's the way I was feeling, then she respects that.
Okay.
And she said that most of the time when you have kids and you have a relationship where people, like, they love each other more, they fall out of love, this connection, that having kids, even bringing a new baby into the equation, doesn't always work as keeping, like, the couple happy and the kids happy. It's like, it almost is like better if two are on different sides.
Yeah, you don't want to spend your whole marriage disliking each other and faking for the kids.
Yes, and that's one thing.
Okay. And is that accurate?
That's totally accurate.
Okay.
I mean, you don't want to be the people parading around with, like, a mask on when the kids are around, and then when the kids go to sleep, you just go your separate ways.
Okay.
It's like, that's what I don't want.
Okay.
And that's why we're talking about that separation that night.
Okay.
And that's why that's why I got so emotional right there.
Okay. Emotional for you too?
Oh yeah, I was bawling my eyes out.
Okay. So then as a result, how long did that conversation last?
It lasted, so about 4:15 when we started, we talked about the house as well.
Okay. What did you say about the house?
Like, we needed to sell the house. Like, there's no way, like, we can stay in this house and have another kid and be able to just keep everything afloat. And she's like, well, where do you want to move to? I was like, well, we can move to Brighton, we can move, are you familiar with the area?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. So we can move to Brighton, we can move to Longmont, we can move, like, you know, wherever, somewhere that's cheaper.
Okay.
And she was like, well, because she had already contacted the realtor the week before through an email to see, like, what she thought. And that's when, like, I actually contacted Ann that day, like, a little, like, pretty much probably about 8 o'clock that day.
Who's Ann?
The realtor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and asked her, you know, like, if we can get the ball rolling, like, see what she thought.
So you said your wife called a week before to the realtor?
Emailed her.
Okay, so then this conversation early in the morning wasn't a shock to either of you or a surprise. It was the next step in a long conversation you have to have leading up to. Okay.
Well, this was not like just like way up like a Big Bang Theory type thing. It was just like, this was, that's why it was just an emotional conversation, like, because it wasn't just like come out of nowhere, left field type of thing. Like, we knew, like, something wasn't, we knew about what we wanted to do with the house. We knew, like, what's going on with it. Like, we knew something was.
So when I work investigations like this, I have to keep an open mind on everything, okay? And part of keeping an open mind is listening to you talk about your wife and your marriage, and the day she goes missing is the day that you guys have marital discord, okay? So you can understand what I'm thinking about you.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Makes me sick to my stomach, honestly. Like, I know, like, I've talked to a few of my friends who's like, you know, this does not look good on you. I'm like, I know. It's like, if people knew that we were having marital issues, they're going to look at me, especially with the way everything looks. And it honestly just makes me sick to my stomach because this is something that I would never do. Ever.
Are you telling me the truth?
I'm telling you the absolute truth.
Why should I believe you?
Because I'm a very trustworthy person, and the people that do know me, they know how I'm a calm person. I am not an argumentative person. I am a person that's never going to be abusive or physical in any kind of relationship. I would never harm my kids. I would never harm my wife.
He was connected to a polygraph test and given a series of questions to determine what he really knew about his family's disappearance.
Regarding Shanann's disappearance, do you intend to answer all of the questions truthfully?
Yes.
Were you born in 1985?
Yes.
Before 2018, did you ever say anything out of anger to a loved one?
Yes. No.
Do you know where Shanann is now?
No.
Are you now in the state of Colorado?
Yes.
Before 2018, have you ever wanted to hurt someone to get even with them?
No.
Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?
No.
Is your first name Christopher?
Yes.
Before 2018, did you ever lose your temper with someone you cared about?
No.
Are you lying about the last time you saw Shanann?
No.
This portion of the test is complete. Please remain still while I take the instrument out of operation.
During the questioning, Christopher was asked if he knew where Shannon was. He replied that he did not know where she was, which came out as a lie on the machine. This escalated suspicions around Chris Watts. He was being deceptive in some way and kept refusing to tell police the truth about what happened. Even when they told Chris he failed the polygraph test, he promised he wasn't lying.
So, it is completely clear that you were not honest during the testing, and I think you already know that. You did not pass the polygraph test.
Okay.
Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. And I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise.
With a dire situation that needed answers, police brought in Chris's dad, Ronnie Watts, to help get him through the difficult time.
That was a long thing.
the polygraph failed it. Yeah, because there's too much emotions. So, I mean, they're not going to let me go.
Anything else you want to tell me? What's going on? Or what happened or anything? Or you know anything about it?
When we had that conversation that morning, it was emotional. It was, told her about separation and everything like that.
What happened after that?
I mean, I went downstairs and I don't want to protect her.
What?
I don't want to protect her.
You don't want to protect her?
I don't know what else to say.
What happened?
Huh?
She hurt him?
Yeah. What?
She smelled it? Or choked him? No.
I didn't hear anything. When I was downstairs, I came back up and they were gone. I don't know, what else to say, I freaked out. Those are my kids.
Did she kill him?
They're blue.
Both of them?
Yeah.
She choked both of them to death.
I freaked out in the champagne. After that conversation,
Chris said that Shannon had found it more and more difficult to be a mother. Their marriage was in turmoil, and she was trying to find ways to rekindle the love that they used to have. Because things were better between the two of them before having kids, she started to be resentful toward their children. Shannon would lash out at their daughters over small things, and Chris said he'd have to step in to try and stop her. Tensions continued to grow, and Chris said that on the night of Shannon's disappearance, she finally snapped. Chris told to Shannon that he wanted them to officially separate and finalize their divorce. Chris said Shannon lost her temper at the news and ran upstairs to suffocate their daughters in retaliation, holding pillows to their faces. In a fit of anger, Chris attacked Shannon to try and stop her, strangling and killing her in the process. Shannon had died, but her damage was done. Both girls were dead by that point, leaving Chris with his dead family. In a panic and not wanting to draw suspicion, Chris said he took the bodies and buried all three of them out in the middle of the desert. Despite their troubles and oncoming divorce, Chris still cared about Shannon and said he felt some need to protect her. He cleared out the bodies, then pushed the narrative that she had run away and taken their children. This still wasn't great for Shannon, but it was much better than familicide. The case turned into an incident of a man protecting his ex-wife. He still wanted what was best for her. This was a heartbreaking
where his
revelation.
wife, Shanann Cathryn
Chris
Rzucek,
revealed the
was.
locations of Shannon and their daughter's bodies, which allowed investigators to go retrieve them. Shannon was buried in the ground while the girls' bodies were dumped into a crude oil tank. The bodies were analyzed for evidence, and it was concluded that these were the remains of the Watts family. Shannon died of strangulation, and the daughters of asphyxiation, just like Chris had said. The picture of what happened started to become clear, and this was much closer to the truth of what happened, but it still wasn't the full story. Christopher Watts' story was convenient for him. It explained all the murders that had happened, portraying Shannon as an unhinged killer and leaving him with a possibly justifiable homicide charge. The truth, however, was slightly different than what Chris had initially told. Evidence continued to come forward, and a new series of events started to take shape. For one, Chris had been having an affair with a younger woman, Nicole Kessinger, for several months before the incident. In interviews, Nicole said that she met Chris through work, and he seemed nice at first. He portrayed himself as a single man who seemed to really care about her. But as the relationship continued, Watts began revealing more truths about who he was. He revealed that he was a father of two, then later that he was still married but in the middle of a divorce. Nicole quickly realized that Chris was a chronic liar, someone who could easily lie about anything to make himself look better. Not wanting to be involved with someone like that, she broke off the relationship. Only after Shannon's disappearance did Nickel learn that Chris's wife was 15 weeks pregnant with their third child. According to Nickel, she started to grow concerned for Shannon and her well-being after reading the article. Knowing Chris the way she did, Nickel was concerned about Shannon's safety from her husband and was quick to contact authorities and address her concerns. With photos of her and Chris together for months, she proved to be a credible source to put pressure on Watts. Investigators continued to press Christopher for information. Only then did the truth finally come forward. Contrary to what Chris initially claimed, Shannon was not resentful towards her daughters. From her online presence, it could be interpolated that she genuinely cared about her daughters. On top of that, close friends who regularly talked with, Shannon did not see the same resentment towards her daughters that Chris claimed. In fact, they claimed Shannon loved her family and only wanted what was best for everyone. This made it almost unthinkable that she would then suffocate her daughters in a fit of anger like Chris claimed she did. On the night of the incident, Shannon had thought Chris's and her marriage was about to get better. The two had spent that night together, and she was hopeful about a recovery for their family. Then the truth came out. Shannon had discovered Christopher Watts was having an affair for months without her knowledge. While she was trying to repair their marriage, Chris was widening the rift, starting a new life with someone else. This revelation turned out to be the true start to the argument that evening. Shannon and Christopher fought, and in a fit of temper, it was Christopher who made the first move, strangling Shannon in their kitchen. After Shannon was dead, Chris saw that their two daughters had woken up. They asked what was wrong with their mom, and Chris told them she was just sick and that they would need to leave somewhere. By then, Chris had plans of what to do with his daughters. They were witnesses and could easily tell the police what they saw and what Chris had done. In a panic, Chris packed Shannon's body and digging supplies into his truck. He then put his two daughters into the back seat before driving out to a cruise oil container in the middle of the desert. Chris took a blanket, and with his daughters buckled up and unable to move, he suffocated them one at a time. This was the full story. Christopher was no hero nor a victim of circumstance, and Shannon wasn't the heartless monster he tried to make her seem. Christopher Watts was the monster who had killed his entire family, hoping that doing so would allow him to start over and have a new family, maybe not with Nickel Kessinger, but with someone else. During the sentencing trial, Chris sat and listened as his extended family, one by one, condemned him for his heinous crimes.
Us before this court today. By my comments, I'm not even going to try to express the horror, the pain, or the suffering that the defendant has caused to these families, to this community, and to all who were a part of this investigation. However, I do want to spend a few minutes sharing with the court the details of the crime, as so far you've only had an opportunity to review the affidavit and a few facts here and there that have been offered to the court in the motions and pleadings that have been filed. The questions that have screamed out to anyone who will listen since August 13th of 2018 are why and how? Why did this have to happen? How could a seemingly normal husband and father annihilate his entire family? For what? These are the questions that only one individual in this courtroom or on this planet knows the answers to.
What I'd like to say to the courts that Shannon, Bella, and Nico are loving, caring people. They love life. They love being around people who love them. They always had good times. This is the first time they went to the beach this year, and they loved it. But God only knows what happened that night. Life will never be the same without Shannon, Bella, and Celeste and Nico. Had all their lives to live. They were taken by a heartless one. This is the heartless one, the evil monster, who dare you take the lives of my daughters Shannon, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. And they also trusted you. The heartless monster, and then you take them out like trash. You disgust me.
You went from being my brother, my sister's protector, one of the most loved people in my family, to someone I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand. What gave you the right to put your hands on a woman, let alone my best friend, my beloved sister, your daughters, and your son? Why weren't they enough for you?
Marriage is about love, trust, and friendship and unity. We marry for sickness and health, to death do us part. Our daughter Shannon loved you with all of her heart. Your children loved you to the moon and back. Shannon's family was her world. Shannon put a crown on your head. But unfortunately, the day that you took their life, God removed that crown. We loved you like a son. We trusted you. Your faithful wife trusted you. Your children adored you, and they also trusted you. Your daughter Bella Marie sang a song proudly. I don't know if you got to see it, but it was, "Daddy, you're my hero." I have no idea who gave you the right to take their lives.
At the end of the trial, Christopher Watts was sentenced to 5 life sentences in prison with no chance for parole, plus another 84 years.
In this case, the court's going to find that the plea agreement is fair and reasonable under the circumstances. I want to acknowledge the Rzucek family, as well as the Watts family, that showing mercy on Mr. Watts is understood, and I respect that decision to request that the district attorney not seek the death penalty in this case. And so the court is going to accept this plea bargain under the circumstances. Words that come to mind when I hear the evidence in this case are a senseless crime and the viciousness of the crime. And equally aggravating in this court's determination is the despicable act of disposing of the bodies in the manner in which they were done in this case. I've been a judicial officer now for starting my 17th year, and I could objectively say that this is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen. And nothing less than a maximum sentence would be appropriate, and anything less than the maximum sentence would depreciate the seriousness of this offense.
There he remains to this day, serving a sentence he has no hope of ever filling in his lifetime. Even the other prisoners have been harsh to Chris, having no sympathy for a man cold enough to take the life of his wife, kids, and unborn child.